Feuchamaich Olde Scot the Celtic podcast. Kimraha Huladunya, how is everyone? On today's show in Feuchamaich Beagan Gaidhlig, that's Let's Try Little Gaelic. We're going to be in that children's Gaelic book, Daddy Agus Carr. In Celtic history, we're going to talk about the historic Dogtown in an everyday Celtic ways and Gille Dhu. And we're going to hear music from Karen Matheson, Kathleen McInnes, Dougie McLean, Emily Smith, and Bonnie Rideout. And to kick things off, Irish trivia. What is the English translation of Avrin na Wain? Check out the Ye Olde Scot Facebook group where you can be a part of the Celtic culture, and keep an eye out for all the different videos our YouTube channel and Facebook group have to offer. Feuchamaich, let's kick this thing off.
Catcha gelcha dunne cod the rowan cod the rua. Na hile gachi chana croich gelische cod the rua. Chanach gemische ferred vodje die vid korse chloi. Va gjulan truskang licholja omach the cod the rua. Charo kocht an canyap no fod the sound sa chod the ruach. Sound vaik jaar chemach a corn the beard the chloin and one. Smo vile bianach ekut halad a home se jaar sa guai. Sa jarave hart vi edu vjod na dringen god the ruach. Hjuling ist worden jarne lische chade rua. Eiche hies an arch de manes, eiche barnish huas. Charo talan change au nor an glinche kjall no duan. Nach eich gegiat mo charich kodan a hen se gade rua. Ach shimmer mia vag hukugas o heens de chade rua. Amach gacheiche nooit bachar gav is a chas nam hooi. Eter baren jes bekies en jers ma hooi. Skandagas mit jeder sharaf geleor jet heens de chade rua. Shing eiche gande joost is gelach shing stop it chluash. Skande heel shing gachi ider doi as lish na gol shing suas. Gegleintje mische tejang grot de galor ang loi. Swa bocht de laun sa chule poch a vidde chode rua. Hoeke vat na huisje gonach getraan ontje looi. Gan smuntje geged gol gan chos ach tolak gan man goord. Smikeestjach de sja chule skeel a chulas hies na hoos. Sa chule hun juet velver ek verre chode rooi. Ach gumme fat fallang beovis verre chode rooi. Gus ishe skjolin jiden jarne du I chornen boel. Sma sjeske jikke kwarch gebrach en was darin chloi. Gan sheen bart a lavle tjoen de jere chode rooi.
Scottish Gaelic is native to the Gaels of Scotland. Scottish Gaelic developed out of the Old Irish, and learning this beautiful language can be a direct link to your Gaelic ancestors. Follow along in Feuchamaich Beagan Gaidhlig, and like I said, let's try a little Gaelic. I am not an authority on the Gaelic language, I just love learning it. I struggle like most, so what I teach comes right from well-respected Gaelic teachers. I hope you find this interesting, informative, and fun, and I always display on the screen what I am discussing. Today, we're doing a beginner's Gaelic book called Daddy Agus Car, Daddy in the Car. Daddy Agus Car, Daddy in the Car. Un la va daddy a falav a alber. Chai I amach chun a car. Ach cha chillig gok ans a car. Chuskel daddy an chitchen. Hanek mommy amach. Horse mommy. Jihak her a car. Anju, ha en chitchen fluch, horse daddy. Hormach daddy na plukadin. An urshen ur en char gedol. Chalav daddy good geober. Nor a hanek daddy gachi. Huch mami a mach shan flach. Horse mami. Shokwit. Choshin an inshin. En oiche shin. Chur daddy a flach an inshin. An ath vatin alav daddy an alber. Halav an car gustri. Ach an urshin hunek daddy. Torshu a Chien ans an inshin. Stat daddy an car as vinich. Huskel an chichin. An chin va a flach adol na chin. O horse daddy. Ka ro kuvna akam a flach. Hillig a flach ansen lon. Kai and Chinya as. Chum daddy gil aber. Nor a hill yaki. Horse ri mami. Heb and car adol na henya anju. Kimmer horse mami. J and Kjar a har shin. Kada huvnik mi a flach, horse as horse daddy. Halav mi leish a flach ansen inshin. Hoshik iet a gerlikten.
Ha horomel roani glinigen. Ha horomel roani. Lalav da vahet zugem firchar. Ha horomel roani. Zoeken firgar ahorom roani. Zoeken baksen rodig minne ahorom roani. Zoeken baksen rodig minne ahorom roani. Zoeken coração san rodig minne. Sun san rad o hoch minne ha horo moroni snap chicken de la hilasi ha horo moroni
Celtic history brings you the tales of the land, castles, warriors, heroes, legends, and customs that have created the rich, vibrant, and sometimes strange and wonderful history of the Celtic world. Dogtown. Sometimes you can see a glimpse of our Celtic past if you just look around. Our Celtic influence is felt around the world, in the places we live and the things we do. Here's an example of that influence. Now, if you look at the St. Louis's list of 79 neighborhoods, you won't find Dogtown because it's not an official neighborhood of the city of St. Louis. We call it Dogtown, though. Almost everybody in St. Louis calls it Dogtown, but for some reason the city doesn't formally recognize the name. Now, the Dogtown area was once known for coal mining and brick manufacturing. If you look around St. Louis, you will see a lot of brick buildings. The area had large deposits of coal and clay, but it took the railroad to spark development. The coal and clay were too laborious to get to the riverfront by hand and cart in sufficient quantities pre-1850. But all that changed in the early 1850s when the Pacific Railroad laid 5 miles of track from the city to the mines and manufacturing centers. Once the train track was there, the clay and the coal were easily accessible. The mining industry expanded and a neighborhood sprung up around the shacks and shanties. It wasn't just the miners, it was the butchers, the bakers, and such that make a neighborhood possible. Now, before long there was a Catholic church, St. James Parish, smack dab in the middle of Dogtown, which is still there today and dates to 1860. Most of the early residents were immigrants who came to work in mines and the brick-making factories. Mostly they were from Ireland, but a few others came from Germany, France, and the Balkans. Notice the year, though. Now, this would have all happened just after a huge influx of Irish immigrants due to Angorta Mór, the Great Famine. Now, the area was originally known as Cheltenham, early on after the railroad, but before the World's Fair would come to town in 1904, Dogtown is what it was called by squatters who built shacks in the neighborhood of Graham and West Park in 1876. So you see, it had the name Dogtown already. The squatters were miners who were displaced when the city bought the nearby land for Forest Park. The name Dogtown began as a mere description because the mostly poor Irish residents who had to have watchdogs to protect their shacks and belongings from hobos who rode the rails. Now, the connection that's frequently made coming out of the area attributed to the 1904 World's Fair, and often attempted to be discredited for some reason, between Dogtown and the indigenous people of the Philippines, who lived in an exhibit at the 1904 Louisiana Purchase Exposition in Forest Park. Now, according to the legend, the Igorots hunted dogs in the neighborhood for ceremonial rituals, part of their culture. Now, the World's Fair story became more popular in the 1980s when Seamus McDaniel's, a popular Irish pub and restaurant, added the lore about the Igorots to its menu, and the story took hold as a St. Louis legend. Now, even though I can remember the story being told in my youth during the late 60s and 70s in St. Louis. The Philippines exhibit at the World's Fair displayed the people and culture many had never seen, and even though part of their culture is hunting dogs, dog hunting occurred during the fair. Now, it's said that the city pressured the Igorots to perform the rituals as part of the World Fair hype, and that the city arranged to provide the dogs from local pounds. Of course, this spin came later on the story and may have been to quell rumors that the Igorots were actually hunting dogs in the nearby neighborhood known as Dogtown. It is in fact so close to Forest Park that the barking of the dogs could have easily been heard. Now, Dogtown is now known more for its neighborhood bars and eateries and the annual St. Patrick's Day Parade, sponsored by the St. Louis Ancient Order of Hibernians. Now, the parade can go on all day, and the emphasis, of course, is on Irish and Celtic pride. Dogtown began as a blue-collar neighborhood, but now it is the center in St. Louis for all things Celtic and Irish. Almost as many people show up for the Dogtown Parade as they do for the one sponsored by the city of St. Louis held downtown. Now, people clamor to be here all year round, though. It's a great place to be and live. In this neighborhood, some residents are 4th, 5th generation Dogtowners, keeping the culture and the legends going for future generations.
Where he been all the day, Lord Donald, my son? Where he been all the day, my bonny young man? I been to the green woods, Mother Mac, my bed soon, for a weary wee hunting, and a fair would lie do. What did you meet in the green woods, Lord Donald, my son? What did you meet in the green woods, my bonny young man? Oh, I met with my sweetheart, Mother Mac, my bed soon, for a weary wee hunting, and a fair would lie do. What did you have for your dinner, Lord Donald, my son? What did you have for your dinner, my bonny young man? Adios, boiled and brie. Mother, make my bed soon, for them we hunting, and the fin would lie do. Oh, I fear ye are poisoned, Lord Donald, my son. Oh, I fear ye are poisoned, my bonny young man. Oh, I am poisoned, mother, gan and make my bed soon, for I'm sick at the head, and a fin would lie do. What will you leave to your brother, Lord Donald, my son? What will you leave to your brother, my bonny young man? All my horses and lambs, mother, make my bed soon, for I'm sick at the head, and a fin would lie down. What will you leave to your sweetheart, Lord Donald, my son? What will you leave to your sweetheart, my bonny young man? Oh, a noose in yon high tree, mother, make my bed soon, for I'm sick at my head, and a fin would lie down.
Everyday Celtic Ways brings you the mythology, traditions, and customs that have created a unique and personal culture that still affects those that are Celtic and those that just love the Celtic world. And Gille Dhu. What is small, invisible, and lurks in the woods? The Gille Dhu, of course. He is a male fairy who lives deep in the Scottish forests. Any forest, really. He is particular to birch trees. He lives alone and camouflages himself from humans using leaves and moss for clothing and camouflage. The Gille Dhu can only come out at night. Are you afraid of walking through a deep forest in the dark? I don't blame you. The Gille Dhu, or the dark-haired lad in Gaelic, gets very angry if adults trespass upon his forest, and he severely punishes those that interfere with his precious leafy home. For you see, it was the healer of the clan Fraser, his clan, who was a secret witch that cast a spell upon him, turning him into a fairy. Well, her secret wasn't as secret as she had thought, and when the laird's son came up missing, she was the first suspect. However, she refused to divulge what she had done with the young lad, and eventually died under intense torture. This healer was a McCrae, and plans were beginning to be made to enact some sort of revenge, some sort of vengeance upon the clan McCrae. This wild tree sprite, though, quickly became known for his kindness, but only the younger explorers of his woodlands, holding a childlike hatred for adults, One day the Gille Dhu came across a frightened local girl named Jessie McCrae, who had become lost in the woods. As it was getting dark, the Gille Dhu confronted her and led her through the forest and all the way home to safety. But it was a long trip to Ellendonan Castle, and as he led her to the front doors of the castle, the sun broke upon the horizon. He looked around for cover, somewhere to hide out until the next evening. But this castle lies upon a small island without a tree in sight, and it was then when she realized that now his life was in danger. She turned and banged upon the door desperately, trying to wake the servants within. Every pound of the door of the sunlight inched closer to where they stood. Young Jessie pounded upon the door until the iron bolts and hardware caused her fists to bleed. The sunlight was upon her now, and she had only one idea left. She grabbed the little sprite and tucked him into her stomach and did her best to conceal him from the damaging light. She could feel his skin begin to dry and crack, and a weird smoke rose from his body. She feared he would burst into flames right there in her arms, but she held her savior tight, for it was the only thing she could do. He looked up at her with sad eyes and told her it would be okay. He was just happy she would be safe. Suddenly, the big wooden doors swung open, and she was swallowed up in the arms of her worried and frantic parents. They were taken aback by the odd little creature she held so tight, but it was evident it was in trauma, so they quickly pulled them into the interior of the castle and slammed the door shut. The tree sprite and young Jessie were relieved, and upon telling the servants about the sunlight and how it hurts them, they covered all the windows. So now he was safe. Now you might think that's the end of our story. However, it's just getting started. Just over a hill in the nearest glen, and in ships waiting upon the edge of the loch upon which the castle sits, was the warriors of the Clan Fraser, armed to the teeth, here to exact revenge, swords sharpened, rifles loaded, and pipes at the ready to call for the charge. At first glance, the Clan Fraser thought the castle looked deserted. No light shone from any window. In the entire castle, not a single person stirred upon the castle grounds. So the clan chief, the grieving father, decided that he would ride up to the castle and see for himself if his adversary was home or had run like a coward. He rode his horse upon the stone bridge and right up to the front door. Standing tall in his steed, he called out to anyone within to show themselves. But upon seeing someone at the castle door, an eager young Fraser clansman fired a shot, thinking he was taking out the leader of their enemies. The clan chief slumped over on his horse and began sliding off when the castle doors burst open and two men dragged him within. The other Frasers in the glen were confused and mustered their forces for an all-out assault on the castle. The pipes began to wail. The Frasers in the ships knew the mistake, but they didn't know what to do. Seeing their own clansmen barreling over the hills, amassing for war, they knew not what to do. So frantically they set sail for the castle grounds. But sadly, the wind was not with them. They began to row frantically, but it was slow going, and their forces upon the land were getting closer and closer to sieging the castle. Warriors funneled across the stone bridge, eager for the taste of bloody revenge. Suddenly, the door swung back open, and their clan chief stood stumbling before them, held up by the chief of the McCrae. He called for his men to stand down. You see, the Fraser chief, he had learned that it was his son, cursed by the witch, that had saved the young McCrae girl. His son's heroic deed made him proud, but his son was still a fairy. The Frasers stayed until dark that night, healing, feasting, and drinking before they began to return to their castle. The Fraser chief wanted to take his son home, but knew he couldn't, which made him sad. The young sprite began to leave with his father to return to the woods, where he would live out his life, when young Jessie ran up to them both and kissed the father for stopping the feud, and then kissing the young sprite for being her savior. Suddenly a bright green light burst all around them, enveloping the whole of the island. The sprite became entrapped within a swirl of mist and light, and then just as suddenly the mist cleared and the young boy stood where the sprite had once. They all rejoiced from then on. The Frasers and McRaes were friends, and to this day the front door to Ellendonan Castle has an inscription that reads in Gaelic, Cofadas of vi McRaestai, Ka vi frislek of me, amwi. In English, as long as it says in English, as long as a McRae is within, there'll never be a Fraser without. And if you don't believe me, you can look it up on Google yourself. I've actually seen it for myself. Top 11 Heritage. Now remember to check out my YouTube channel. It's got Celtic music, podcasts, Gaelic language, Gaelic song, Celtic history videos, plus lots more. And my Facebook group where you can give me your inputs and insights on all things Celtic. But before I let you go, the trivia question answer. A soldier song. Martian leaving Drozda, bye for now. But I'm going to let you go with a song.
Goodbye, Bobby.